Have you ever tried to sell stuff yourself? Like, did you start that way and then move to agents? Or did you just start with land brokers from the very beginning?
We've done a couple properties where we put them in the flat fee MLS, but it's really mostly because I can't find a good agent to work with in that area. So it's been out of necessity rather than preference. I love working with agents because that, for me, it kind of lops off like a whole half of the business that I don't have to worry about. Like I don't have to worry about the marketing side or buyer side website or any of that stuff. I just get that off to the agents. And the good ones will have a buyer list already. They'll have people looking in that area. They'll do the right marketing stuff. They'll put it on the land website, land.com. They'll put it in the MLS, so I think the good ones will get back a lot more return than when I'm paying them in commission.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And that's a common denominator I've been hearing from a lot of people who are doing really well on land is they hire licensed agents to sell their stuff and they just deal with whatever costs are associated with that. But you're right. I mean, it does lop off a huge time waster, a massive frustration that a lot of land investors have to deal with. So if you can find them, yeah, I would totally say use them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just a big fan of that because obviously I come from, since I'm a licensed broker and everything, in none of these areas, I'm in California, so I'm not licensed in any of these other states that we're dealing with, but I just see it from the other perspective. I know that a good agent is going to bring more value to the equation. If you pick a bad agent, though, it's going to do nothing for you. It's actually going to be the opposite. So you have to be really selective in who you work with. I've worked with a couple agents doing this that turned out to be not so great. They seemed great on paper, but they didn't ultimately do a great job.
Yeah, I just fired my first agent. Yeah, it was a very mutual firing, we'll call it. And it was a small lot. I mean, it was a $12,000 retail vacant lot we bought for $4 or $5 grand or something, so no great deal, but he just wasn't marketing it. He threw it up he made all these promises about where he was going to post it and literally just put it on MLS. I mean, I don't even mean like had gone to all the other MLS sites. I mean, just on their local MLS. No Zillow, no Trulia, no Redfin, none of that. And I kept checking in with him. And eventually he just responded and was like, look, man, I'm burned out. I'm like, all right, well then you're fired. Like, it was amicable. And he sent me a nice agreement to cancel the listing agreement. But he just, how do you just say you're burned out and you don't want to do your job? Like, why'd you take the listing, man? Like, we didn't have to do this.
That's the best way to handle any employee who's struggling when they come to you and confide in you. It's like, well, you're fired then. Get out of here.
It's not worth it.
Okay, it was not an in-house employee for the record.
I know. I'm joking. You had some kind of a 6-month contract with them or something, and you got rid of them prior to that expiring?
Yeah, we had a 6-month listing agreement, and I manage my realtors, like, not micromanage them by any means, but if it's a new relationship, I would say I follow up pretty frequently, and I'm usually pretty anal about setting expectations of like, hey, where all are you going to list these properties? And then if I don't see them listed there, I say, hey, I'm having trouble finding the Zillow listing. Would you mind pointing me towards it? I just love seeing how many views and likes we have. Yeah, right, exactly. So you can be tactful in how you follow up, of course, but that usually then elicits, oh, I made a mistake. Oh, that's so weird. Why isn't it on Zillow? But anyway, long story long, we had gone through 3 or 4 iterations of this. I had called him, left voicemails. Eventually, I could tell he was avoiding me at a certain point, which is never a healthy sign for somebody that you've got an agreement like that with. And eventually, he just wrote me this long text message about how he was burned out. And he's like, I could have somebody else on my team handle this if you want to transfer that over. I'm like, man, you had a ton of experience in land. I wanted to work with you, but if you just don't have the bandwidth for this right now, I'd prefer to list it with another agent that I get to vet. If you wouldn't mind, can you please send over a cancellation for the listing agreement? So it was all very like amicable and respectful. I wasn't a jerk or anything to this guy, and he did not need the $1,000 or whatever he was going to make from the listing.
That's actually, because I find it so irritating when people just don't do what they're supposed to do and it's not hard. And I have to pretend like I'm the idiot. Like, hey, maybe I'm wrong. I get it. And that is the right way to respond the first time or two it happens. But I just can't stand these games we have to play, Like, just do your job, But that makes me think that's a good use for ChatGPT is tell it, I want to fire them. Help me kindly explain this to them so that they will love me when it's all done.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's fantastic. I've been playing a lot with ChatGPT since you posted that video, actually, Seth. It's been fantastic just for random things. I've been copywriting, and I don't know if you've played with it much, Pete, but it'll even write things in tones of people. I can't remember if, Seth, you pointed that out or not in the video you posted, but I've had it write this in the tone phone of Ryan Reynolds, and it'll be
Oh,
in this really
yeah, he's got
funny,
a commercial
goofy
about that. It's
thing.
great.
Yeah, I
great.
think he does. He posted that after I had seen it, but
Are people using it for listing descriptions? I always, would struggle with that,
That's a huge use case for sure. And it does an amazing job of it. I noticed at the time of this recording, it seems to be throttled back a bit. Like sometimes I can't get on at all. Like it's overused or whatever. So anyway, but either way, I mean, I'm sure that kind of technology is here to stay in one form or another. The fact that it exists, like I'm sure it will continue to evolve. And it's kind of nice that we don't have to use our brains so hard anymore. As long as we, be sure to somehow insert originality and personality into it if it's not already there.
Yeah. Have you ever played with the one with what is it called? The one that does the photos or the art, the stuff.
Is that
what is it called?
Jasper or something, or Dali, or
Yeah, Dali.
Dali.
That's it. Yes, I spent a whole night coming up with weird.
Oh, really?
Stuff and sending to my family, in Slack. But
yeah, that's pretty cool. I told it to come up with a picture of a farmer with a hat and overalls looking out over a field painted in the style of Monet or Van Gogh or something, one of those things. And it did it. And it wasn't like the most gorgeous thing I'd ever seen, but just like it understood. And it did it.
I know.
It's crazy.
Too crazy. Who knows where all that stuff is going to lead? I know it's going to change things. I guess I'm just not smart enough to figure out what those changes are going to be. But I'm just trying to keep my finger on the pulse and adapt accordingly.